Okay, so hi everyone. I think we can start with this session, and few people have joined. Few would be looking for the recordings, so not an issue. And I hope you may have received up the link from the last session. And for any question answers, you can use your chat because there are many students in the session, and it won't be possible that everyone goes on and unmute his microphone and he speaks up. So far better if you can drop me a message yes or no if you can access the chat, right? Members who have joined today, welcome to you in the batch, and you can also drop a message in the chat, right? So if anyone is having any problem in the opening up the chat screen, it is in your menu option from where you can open up the chat, right? So just check for your menu inside the Zoom meeting. It is chat option. I have sent a hi to everyone. Give me a quick reply over there, and then we can start with the session. And just confirm if you can see my screen. Drop me a message yes, Y, or N in the chat message. All right. Great, great. Okay. So I hope you guys are, you can see my screen and right. So yesterday we had the first session. We had the basic introduction of Java. I have shared the class recording with you guys. You can watch it again and again to understand of the concepts, revise it, right? So this way, every session that will be attended live will be also uploaded to YouTube, and the link would be shared with you guys, right? So you can go through it. You can find out the like concepts. You can note them down. It would be a good practice if you note the key points from each recording, right? So now agenda for today's session is that we are going to have some understanding of programming introduction, right? Now, when I say what is programming, right, how to describe it. So a brief, like couple of lines on programming introduction, then we'll see the Java program, understand it, how to write a Java program, print output. Now, new things that you are going to do today is literals, variables, and operators. What are these literal, variables, and operators? Now, when I talk about the literals, variables, and operators, these are like the core part of your program. They are the storage of data, right? So we'll come to this. Let's start with the programming introduction. What is a program, right? What is a program? How to write a program? We are going to talk about this writing a program irrespective of any technology, right? Independent of any technology. So when I say I have to write a program, the first question comes to my mind or anyone's mind is why to write a program, right? What is programming? What is programming and why should one write the program? That is the main concern. If I want to go become a software engineer, one can understand, okay, I will be making up softwares, right? So then what is programming in it? If I have to make up software, I have to do program. See, programming is to solve a problem, right? Through computers. Using computers or electronic devices or machinery, you can solve a problem. Now, if I look at the problem, if I look at the computer, then one takes into the mind that, okay, I'm going to make a software which is going to run on the computer only, right? But in today's time, you can find a small part of computer everywhere in every device, whether it is a vehicle, a car, right? Nowadays, you can see cars are like being digital. They are connected to the GPS. They are connected, like you can go for some keyless key in and key out, right? Get in and get out. So this way, like the washing machines nowadays, they are more digital. You can set it to run for n minutes, and then it is going to stop after that number of minutes. They have like programs. Depending on the programs, they are going to give you the washing options. So you have microwaves nowadays, right, which are again having some timer set in. They have the menu based program that whatever kind of dish you want to make, they can adjust itself, right? So this way, nowadays you can see there are the concept of smart homes. So all these are achieved with the help of programming, right? All these are achieved with the help of programming. The softwares are made which can help us to achieve these kind of things. Now, when you have to write a program, is it really a difficult task that I should learn it, or is it something like few steps that we have to learn and then follow it? So it is like a standard approach, right? Now see, in our batch, there are like around 6 or 7 members who are online, around 40, 45 members who have subscribed it. So suppose if all these are going to become the software programmers and they are going to write softwares and programs, they need to be on the same page. They need to understand the standard approach, because if I write a program, the other guy should understand what I have written, right? He should understand it. So there is a standard approach. Suppose if it is a software which I have to use it for my own purpose, it's fine, whatever approach you follow. But if you have to write a program which has to be used by a mass of people, right? Huge number of people. So you have to take care of various factors, right? What type of code you are going to use? Is it stable? It is scalable, right? And with the time when more number of people are going to increase using it, so you have to scalable it. You have to increase the size of that application, right? So to write up your programs, you have various technologies like C++, languages C, then Java, okay, .NET, and so on. So various languages are there. Various type of softwares are there. You can write up system software. System software means which is related to your computer, which is related to the system, right? Second one is application software. So application softwares are the softwares which can do some specific task. For example, I want to manage my accounts. I want to manage my inventory, right? So for that, I will need a application software. So using these languages, you are going to write the system software or application software. Okay. So whenever I talk about the programming, the first rule that comes in the programming is input, process, and output. Whenever you want to do some program, you write a program, you have to take care of these 3 things: input, process, and output. Okay. So output means some view, right? Some view that you have given to the client. Who is the client? The person who is running up the software, right? The person who is running up the software. And then what is the input? You are going to take some data, take or get data from client. Okay, so take or get some data from the client. So whenever, for example, take a calculator. So inside the calculator, you input number 2, right? And then you press the button plus. Okay, and then 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So this 2 values are input, right? So these are all input, and after that the process is done for the addition, and then the output is 4, right? This is a very simple example of input, process, output. But if you look around yourself, you will find that input, process, output is being used in every part of your life, right? Every small task, transaction that you do, there is an input, process, output. You go to a ATM machine, right? A bank ATM machine, you input your card, right? You put some instructions like key, passwords, right? Whatever amount you have to withdraw. So all those are taken as input. Now the processing part would be like the machine would be verifying your account, whether the amount is there or not, right? Then whether your password is correct or not. So after a lot of processing, it gives you the output as the money, right? If you look around in your house, let's take an example of making a cup of tea. So you input the raw ingredients like the milk, water, tea leaves, sugar, right? The process is that you are boiling it, right? You are boiling it. So once boiled, then you can stir it well, and then you can filter it out. You get the output, that is a cup of tea or a coffee, right? So looking around, you will find that whole of your world is programmed. Everywhere you will find the input, process, output concept. Okay, everywhere you will find the input, process, and output concept. So Programming is not that tough. The only thing you have to understand is solving a problem, right? Every time you can get a new problem. Every time you can get a new problem. Problems like I say that I have a store and I need to manage up all the inventory. Inventory means the products that are available in my store. And if they are getting less because of the sale, I should be aware that, okay, I have to order these new products. Someone can come to you to say that, okay, I want a software which can manage the attendance of my employees. Like there are 20 employees in my small company, and there is a lot of in and out of the company, like they travel a lot. So I need to manage the attendance. Every time I cannot look at the attendance register. So I need a solution where at the end of the month I click on a button and I get a printed report. So this employee has worked for these many number of hours, the other employee has worked for these many number of hours, and so on. So this way, different clients can come to you with different problems. So you have to provide a solution in the form of programming, right? You have to provide them the solution in the form of a program, software, right? So among this, we have selected up the Java language. So the Java language, we can make up any type of programs, whether it is a system software, whether it is application software, website, web applications, anything, right? So in Java, one feature of Java is that Java is a object-oriented programming. Now, this would be very early if I talk about object-oriented programming. You may be like a lot confused that what are we talking about, like objects and all. And a lot of theory will make you guys like bore about this course. So rather than that, we'll move into the practical part. So one thing you should remember is Java is a object-oriented programming. We'll discuss about this in a very detailed section. What is objects? How do we make the objects, right? Why object-oriented programming? So right now we have to understand, whenever I have to make a program in Java, I have to use a keyword class, right? And write a class name, my app. Okay, my app. So why I'm using up my app? I can use any name, right? But if I use a name like XYZ, this is non-logical. You may not be able to remember this later, right? But if I look at this class, I can understand, okay, this is my application, my app. Okay, give me a quick yes or no if you guys are following up all the points, what I'm talking about. Arna, Jocelyn, Naveed, Amit, great. Okay. So you guys keep on your chat section interactive, right? So at least I should know that you guys are following up the things. So class my app. Now this is a class, right? This is a minimum one class you have to write. And inside this class, I'm going to write a method, public static void main, right? Now the question comes, will this remain as it is? So answer is yes. This is a method which Java will recognize when you have to run your program. So I have a lot of instructions in this programs, and I give this to Java, right? I give this program to Java to run. So Java will immediately find, okay, you have given the class my app. Is there a main method inside this class? So it finds the main method and it starts running up all these instructions. Right? It starts running up all these instructions. And then remember, all the instructions will be running from the top to bottom approach, top to bottom approach. So it is going to start running the program in the form of top to bottom approach in this particular main method, right? Okay. So what can you do inside this? As I told, you can write an input, process, and output. We cannot learn all the things together, right? So today we'll focus on the output process. How can I print something from my program? How can I print something from my program? So for that, you have to use the given instructions. Remember, programming and the language is going to give you a lot of stuff pre-built, right? You don't have to like get into the computer and try to build up a code where you have to deal with the terminals and all. Programming language will give you instruction that if you want to print any output, right, you can print it this way, system.out.println. This is very much equal to printing a number on the calculator screen, right? So same way when I'm going to print it, over here, system.out.println, on your computer terminal, right? On your computer terminal, it will print 2. If I go and write system.out.println, let's say double quotes, some text, right? So this is going to print a text over here. So inside the text, even if you go and make a spelling mistake, it won't bother because it is only the string. Java is not here to check your grammar, right? It is checking, are you passing me a literal? Yes. If you are passing up a literal, it will pick up the literal and print it, right? So very important, how to print the value. You have to use system. System stands for your system itself, right? System is a class, namespace which is given by Java. Out is the reference to your output screen, right? To the output screen. Where do you want to print? So out is the reference to the output stream. Reference to output stream, right? And then we have the print line. So this is your method, right? This is a method. This is a method which will accept some value. So whatever value you pass, that value will be passed to the output stream, right? And anything passed to the output stream means it will be printed over on your terminal, right? When I say terminal, don't get confused. It is the command prompt, right? On Windows, it is the command prompt. And if I'm on Linux, I call it as terminal. Okay, as discussed, we will also use our IDEs, but it is too early to use IDE. IDE will be very easy, but I want you guys to remember more syntax, right? Be more hardcore programmer rather than just using up IDEs and following up Google and all. Okay. So now if I look at my program, this was the program that we created yesterday. So you can see class myapp, and inside that class public static void main. So follow this structure for now, right? Follow this structure for now, that whenever I have to make a program, I will write this class myapp, and inside that I'm going to write public static void main. Okay. And inside that you can print up all the message. You can print all these values, system.out.print. So you can see I'm printing up a text, another text, right? Then a numeric value. Then here I'm printing up a decimal value, a true and false value. While writing up a true and false, I'm not putting them in double quotes, right? While writing up true and false, I'm not putting them in double quotes. If I put it in double quote, it becomes a text, right? Now this is not a text. It is having its own type, which is called as Boolean, right? This is called as Boolean. We'll come to the data types shortly. And then here I'm printing up a single character. Here I'm printing up a single character, right? Any doubts up till here? Okay. Gurman, can you type your question in chat? Naveed, Jocelyn, I hope you guys don't have any doubts. Gurman, if you have any question, please put it in chat. Right. In meanwhile, he types out his question. Let's look further. Okay. So now we will look towards the literals, right? What are literals? As we have just seen in our last program itself, there are various type of values, right? There are various type of values. Now these values can be categorized into different. Roman, which topic are you talking about? The output. Okay, see, when you want to give any output, it's very simple. You can give the output using this statement, system.out.println, give a value inside that, right? Whenever I have to give any output to my terminal, I will pass these instructions, system.out.println. right? So print is a method. If I'm writing a print, it will print the value, will not break the line. If I write print line, it is going to print hello, and the next value will be printed in the next line. For example, see over here. I'll show you CD trainings Java batch 10 Java C my app my first program. Sorry, this is the name of the. Yes, if you have to write in the text, I'm going to show you the same concept that you are asking about. Java C my first program.java. Whenever you write your program, you have to compile it. We discussed this in the last class, and now I'm going to run it, calling it as my app. So see, it's printing hello in the first line, but rest of the values are printed in the same line because of this print and the print line method. Okay. So now if I say, if I'm going to add print line for all, print line means print and move to the next line, print and move to the next line. So here you will see these all values will be printed, and then the line would be like it will end the line, right? It will end the line, and then the values which were printed using print, right, which were printed using passed to the output stream using print, the line was not ended. Now they are printing up every next value in the same line, right? Second, talking about the double quotes, yes, if it is in the, if it is, no, we are not going to talk about SQL. For SQL, we can talk about something direct messages later on, right? So if this is nothing about SQL, right, guys, we'll come to the SQL later when we are going for the connectivity. This is purely Java class. So here, system.out.println, hello. Now here, if I'm printing up a hello and I don't write the text in the double quotes, this will give an error. Java won't understand what is hello over here. See, if you compile, it says cannot find the symbol because Java is not able to understand hello is nowhere in Java program, right? Java program doesn't recognize hello. And if you are writing hello as a text, it should have been into the double quotes, right? So any text that you want to print should be in the double quotes, else it will be an error. Okay. I hope it is clear now. Now, let's go back to our slides. So literals, now we are clear. If I have to write a number, I can write it as a whole number or a decimal number, right? And second thing, if I want to write a character, it should be enclosed in the single quotes, right? A single character will be enclosed in the single quotes. You cannot write multiple characters in the single quotes. That is a rule. For writing up the multiple characters, you need the double quotes. For writing up any true or false value, it should be a true and false without any quotes, right? And don't write any uppercase letter in true and false. If you compare it with Python, in Python, true and false is like in the Pascal case, the letter 2T would be in uppercase, right? Now, very important concept, data types. Java is a strongly typed language, right? Strongly typed language means whenever you have to take some data from client and store it in some value, you have to declare the storage type. Okay, Java is very strict. Java is like full of rules. So they say that, okay, if you want to take any input, first tell me what is the type of value that you want to take. So there are certain primitive types in Java, integer type, character, floating, and Boolean. So the one which you look at the left side, right? The one which you are looking at these ones, right? So the one which you are looking at the left side, that is integer, right? So this integer thing is not a type, right? This is only a classification. So we have different type of integer data types: byte, short, int, and long. So these are data types. So when you have to take some data, you have to tell whether it is a byte, short, int, or long. Now, why 4 types? See, computer has limited memory, right? You cannot take it like very generously. that, okay, if I have to take some data from the user, which is a very small number, I will not declare up a very big variable size. I will not declare up a big memory allotment size, right? So here I have to ensure that my system has some limited memory, and I have to use it with very not very generously. I'm not going to dedicate everything to the big variables. I have to use it and consume it in a very good way, right? I should make a optimum utilization. Then we have a character type. If I want to use store a single character, I get a data type char. I get a data type float and double for the floating point values. Floating point values means decimal values. Okay, floating point values means decimal values. These are decimal values. So this is a character, single character, and these are integer values. So byte, short, int, and long means that they are going to be taking it in the different size, right? From 1 byte to 8 bytes. Okay, and Boolean is a true. So here I'm not writing false, because false doesn't take its storage, right? True only takes its storage, but you also have a type that is false. So here we have a Boolean variable, right? Boolean variable, we can call it as a Boolean type. Okay. Now, if you are not aware of these bytes concept, let's quickly have a look. Sometimes, like, we should not jump to a new topic immediately. Let's understand up what this byte concept here is. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about this bytes. What exactly this byte mean over here? Right. So now when I talk about the byte concept, right, what is byte, right? When I talk about the computer memory, right, computer memory is having some size. For example, you buy a computer of 8 GB RAM. So there you see it's having a 8 GB memory. So this whole 8 GB memory is not being used by your program, right? Your program is going to get a very small part. Now let's visualize this. Suppose if this is the whole memory of your computer, right? So there would be a lot of things running already in your system, your operating system, right? Various softwares which are already running on your system. So out of this, a very small part of memory would be allotted to your program, right? Depending on what are the input and output that you want to give, what are the variables you have declared. So very small part of the memory would be allotted to your program, right? So keeping this in mind, always you have to write your types. So now what are these bytes and all? So remember, your computer talks in the term of binary, right? Your computer talks in the term of binary. So binary language means talking about bits, that is 1 and 0, right? This is 1 bit, 1 and 0. They are the electronic signals. We are not going to talk a lot of computer fundamentals, but I assume that you know that what are the what is a binary language and what are the bits. Now, when these 8 bits together, right? When these 8 bits together are collected, they are called as 1 byte, right? So we measure it in the term of byte. So 1 byte is equal to 8 bits. Okay, 1 byte is equal to 8 bits. And here now you make up like 1024 byte, right? That makes it as 1 kilobyte, right? 1 kilobyte. Now, if you write the letter B in uppercase, that means it is a byte, right? For example, if you take up an internet connection, right? Internet connection, they say that, okay, we are going to give you like 64 Mbps, right? So 64 Mbps. Now this means 64 megabits per second. Now we get very happy. Oh, we are going to get a megabytes per second. It is not 64 megabytes per second. It is only 64 megabits per second, right? 64 megabits per second. So when you convert it into the megabytes, it would be a very small value. So you don't get a megabit bytes per second speed. So whenever you look at your internet speed, they don't write it as MB, B letter in uppercase. That means they are not measuring it in the form of byte. They are measuring it in the form of bits, right? So one who is not aware, he thinks of like, oh, this is a very fast internet, but actually it will be 8 times less, right? 8 times less. So it will be only 8 Mbps. Okay. So similarly, now when you go for 1024 byte, collectively known as 1 kilobytes, 1024 kilobytes collectively is known as 1024, sorry, 1 megabyte. Okay. And 1024 megabyte is equal to 1 gigabyte, and 1024 gigabyte is equal to 1 terabyte. So this is very like size popular nowadays, where you can see your hard disk of your laptops or your computers are coming in a size of like 1 TB, 2 TB and all, right? So this is the storage. This is the storage. Now, when I say your computer will have a memory of this size, no, computer doesn't has a memory of this size. This is the storage. This size of hard disk comes in the computer, but that is a storage. And when you talk about the RAMs in your computer, as I said, RAM nowadays can be 4 GB or 8 GB RAM, right? Or maybe 16 GB RAM. So out of this, it is not all the memory will go to your program. Your program can consume a very small amount of this memory, right? So how will we decide how much memory is required by your program, right? Will your program write any number of like data and then you will get that memory? So the answer is no. The computer decides how much memory is to be given to your program. Though your program can request, like if it runs, it consumes a lot of memory, obviously your system is going to lag a lot, right? Your system will get freezed, it will hang. So in that case, we should ensure that our programming is done in a way where the memory consumption is in an optimum form, right? It should not be like you are declaring up variables unnecessarily, and then obviously it will take up a lot of memory and the other programs will also consume the memory, right? And your system is going to lag a lot. So how will we decide that when to take some memory and when not? So for memory, you have to use these data types. You have to tell that, okay, I want to store a variable, right? I want to store a value. So whenever you want to store a value into your computer, store, right? Store a value. Now, if you remember, we took an example of calculator. So this is my calculator where I have a lot of small buttons, right? Numbered from like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. I can show you a calculator on my system. All right, let it open. Yes. So now see, when you are pressing a button 2, so this value would have been stored somewhere in my computer, right? This value would have been stored somewhere in my computer. Okay. When I press plus, so computer would have also stored this thing, because computer needs to remember your previous step for giving the upcoming output. Okay. So then you press again button 2. So now computer knows that you have entered a number 1, then the operation, and number 2. So now if I add plus, number 3. So computer is remembering up everything. And once you give a equals to symbol, right? See, it gives me the answer 2. So that means computer would have remembered what have I pressed previously. Okay. So when I give a equals to 6, I again do a plus 3. So computer remembers the previous result plus new number gives me the output as 9, right? So here computer would have taken up some memory to store these things. And what is the amount of that memory? It would have taken up these data types. You are writing up an integer value, right? So computer would have taken up any of these 4 variables: byte, short, int, and long. Okay. The standard approach is to take the integer variable. But if suppose you are writing up a very big value, then use long. And if you are writing up a very short value in a very small memory, application, then use byte and short. Else, if you think you have good enough memory to handle up, take up a integer type of variable, which we call as int, right? Now, how to store the value in your program? Let's take a quick look at our sample program first of all. Okay, so I'll write up a new folder for today, 2020 hyphen 10 hyphen 04. And inside this, I will write a new file. Let's call this new file as a variable demo.java, right? Variable demo.java. Again, the same story. I want to write a class. Let's write it as class myapp. Okay. And here we are going to write public static void main string arguments. Okay. So class myapp public static void main string arguments. Gurman, floating means decimal value. When I have to store a decimal number, for example, suppose if I have to store up a weight of some product. So the weight can be like 4 kilograms or 5 kilograms, but it can also be in a decimal value like 4.5 kilograms. So when I have to take a 4.5 kilograms, I will take the value in the form of floating variables, float and double. I'll declare all these variables. Don't worry. We'll declare all these variables and quickly look into it. So this is my skeleton program, right? And now inside this, I want to store a number. Okay. I want to store a number. So right now it is we as a client, we as a programmer who is going to store the number and retrieve also. So when I want to store a number, the first thing I have to do is I have to declare a variable, right? I have to declare a variable. So to declare a variable, first you need is a data type, right? You have to specify a data type and some name is equal to value. This is the, you can say formula or a script to write up a storage of a variable. Okay. First step, data type. So we have seen a lot of data types. So let's take a data type int, right? Int. I want an integer kind of number. So this int, and here you have to give some good name to understand and remember. So I'll say num1 is equal to value 20. As I said, Java is very strict. If you write int num1 is equal to true, right, it will give you an error. It will say, I cannot understand why you are writing true in an integer type of variable, because you have promised Java that give me a int type of storage and I will store a number inside it. Okay. So this way you have to always declare the type and assign the same type of value. You cannot declare an int variable and put character. If you put a character, it will handle up. We'll discuss about later, but string cannot be handled. Now here, if you write up a string, this will be an error. Okay. If you write up something like, let's say 5.2, this will be an error because it is floating, right? So size of the variable matter, right? Size of the data type matter. So here, if I have a value a variable declared as integer int, you should always take a int type of value, right? So see, this is how we are going to declare a variable. Now, one can say, why should I declare up a variable and keep a name to it? Because if you look at your computer memory, right? The memory of, suppose this is computer memory, just a visualization, right? Let's suppose this is a big memory of the computer where you want that client is going to give you few numbers, right? So you have to add both numbers and give the output. Now, maybe there are various steps which you have to follow between these inputs and outputs. So for that much of time, you have to hold these values, right? You have to hold these values. And the only place where you can keep these values stored is your computer memory, right? That is RAM, right? RAM is the place where you are going to running up all your programs at a very top level, like understanding. So here, if you are entering up 2 and then 2, now you want these both values back from the computer and you want to add them. How will you remember where are these? Because computer address can be very complex, right? This is not actual address. I'm just writing up a idea. Okay, so this can be a very complex address. Can you remember these kind of addresses? Maybe one or two, right? But not all. You cannot keep a track of all these complex addresses, right? So what you have to do is you can define up a user-friendly name that, okay, let's have a integer x, right? Now computer will internally map this x with a location in its memory, right? With a location in its memory. So when you are going to say int x is equal to 2, actually computer will save 2 over here. But what you need to remember is only the name x, right? Next time when you say, okay, I want the value of x, system dot out dot print x, right? Now computer will not give you any error because computer knows that you have declared x. You have made a declaration that I will be using up x later. So here you have declared it x and now you are going to use it, right? So let's quickly see it in the program. We go back. What has this opened up? Close it. Go back to your program. So see, I have declared a variable. Now I can request computer to give me back the value, display value of num1. So here, how to display the value? Write system dot out dot println num1. Okay, system dot out dot println num1. So now, if I run this program, what exactly it is going to print? It is going to first declare up a variable. So till the time from line number 6 to line number 7, 8, 9, this value is stored inside the computer. In your computer memory, num1 is equal to 5. Num1 is equal to 5, right? So num1 is just a logical name. You can write any name over here. You can write number 1, you can write x, you can write y, you can write z, anything, right? But you cannot change this. Int will be int. You cannot write it as integer because these are the types of Java, right? The data types inside Java, we cannot change these, right? They have to remain same. Int x is equal to 5. Now, if I run this program, will it run or will it give me any error? What do you think? I have made a small change. I have changed the name over here. I have kept it to x, but I have not changed it at this point. So now Java will not recognize what is this num1 because you have changed it. Earlier it was in the declaration, now it is not there. So now this will give me an error, right? It will say, what is this num1? Yeah, I can understand x because you have said that there should be a storage in the computer memory, which is mapped with integer, right? Which is mapped with this variable x and then store a value of 5 to it. Now let's compile this program. First, we will go to our folder 2020-04 Java C. So whenever you have to compile with the file name variable demo.java. See, it says cannot find the symbol. Why it cannot find the symbol? Because it is not declared. If you had declared it with the num1, name num1, that is fine. Now it will do the work, necessary work. So Java my app. What is the output you are getting? 5, right? So this way you can see declaring a variable can be done. Now there are a lot of variables, right? For example, if I want to print up a decimal value. So for taking a decimal value, you have to write a float variable, right? Float num2 is equal to 5.6. Double num2 is equal to 5.6. And let's write it num3. Now, whenever I'm writing up a float value, double and float, they both save decimal values. Double and float, they both can save decimal values if you have a very big decimal number, right? You can save it inside double. If you have some small values, you can save it in float, right? But computer will get confused if you do it like this. Computer will get confused because it will say that I know decimal values are considered to be double by default, right? When I say by default means something which will happen naturally with Java or by like in force by Java. So by default, Java understands or seeks every decimal value as double. Okay. So Java understands or seeks every decimal value as double. So if you give such a big value, that is also double for Java. If you give a small value, that is also double for Java. So here this is correct, but at this point it will be an error. It will say how you can save a decimal value which is double inside a float variable. Though float and double, they both can save the decimal value, but double is a larger data type, right? So a bigger data type value cannot be saved into a smaller data type. So this is of 8 bytes. This is of 4 bytes, right? So when I say 8 bytes and 4 bytes, what does this mean? 8 bytes and 4 byte means 8 byte means 0 to 64, right? So somewhere around like 64 bits. So here it would be like storing 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, and so on. Okay, so there would be like total 64 bits. Okay, and when I talk about float, so float is going to take around 32 bits. Okay, so can you store 64 bits into the 32 bits storage? No, there are like 64 0 and 1s. 64 0 and 1s. So that's why computer is going to give you an error that how can you save a double, because every decimal value is considered to be a double, right? So how will you store a decimal value into the float variable, because a 64-bit value cannot be stored into a 32-bit. Okay, so here I have to tell computer that don't worry, I know that this is a decimal value, you are considering it as double, but no, this is not double. So I make it a float value, right? I write a letter F behind it. So it can be in lowercase, uppercase, or you can also do it this way. This is called as typecasting. So this way now computer will know that, okay, this is not a double, or if it is a double, no problem, I'll convert it into the float, right? So the type change is there. There is a typecasting. You are typecasting this value. You are casting. You know what is the meaning of casting? Changing the shape, right? Molding. So here also I'm changing the type. I'm casting the type, right? The value remains double, but I am converting it into the float while storing it inside num3. So now if you go and print the value, for storing the value, you have to declare a variable system.out.println. And here I have to print the value num2 and then num3. Okay, so let's go and compile this, quickly run it, and you see the output is printed. Fine. Any doubts in this case? Okay, we have taken a very big value. Let's make it small. Right. Can you see I have given a value like this, but it's printing it in the form of E8. So this is a scientific notation, right? 10 raised to power 8. So it is a scientific notation. Okay, any doubts in this variable declaration? Now, if I have to declare a character variable, char ch is equal to single quotes C. If I have to declare a Boolean variable, Boolean is equal to Boolean is exists is equal to true, right? So this way you can declare up various variables. If you want to declare up a string variable, string, when I want to take a lot of characters, right? Together, group of characters. So take a string variable, string. This is a string message. So there is no limit on the number of characters for this. Give me a quick yes or no. Why write float in? Okay. Okay. Naved, I'll repeat this. Okay. Fine. Everyone is getting doubt over here. Let's quickly repeat this concept. See, as I said, Java by default looks at the decimal value in the form of a double, right? And see the size of the double variable. It's 8 bytes. So when Java considers 5.6 to be a double, it immediately thinks that 5.6 is a 8-byte value, right? Java considers 5.6 as a 8-byte values. And what is the size of float? Size of float is 4 bytes. Remember, when I'm talking about these bytes, it is not of your value. Is of value plus the type of the variable that you are declaring, right? So a 8-byte value can be stored inside the 8-byte variable or a larger variable, right? Similarly, a 4-byte values can be stored inside a 4-byte variable or a larger variable. So here, as I said, Java considers every decimal value as double. So that means what is the size of 5.6 here? Size of 5.6 will be 8 bytes because Java consider it as double, right? So now I have to tell Java that this is not a double value. I am going to give it as save it inside the float, right? I'm going to, if I don't write float over here, see what happens. Such a small value, but Java will give you error. See, it says incompatible types. Possible lossy conversion from double to float. So Java considered 5.6 as double and telling that if you are going to save it inside the float, it will be an error because I will lose some value. So that is what happening over here, right? But now I know that this will not be a problem because this is a very small value. So I tell Java that let's declare this as float, right? So if you want to declare a value, now there is no error, right? But you should have a practice of saving it in this form. I'll tell you later why, but do practice up this form. Don't write it more like this, right? Don't write like this. Try to write it in this form. That 5.6 is a double. I am typecasting it into a float. If you practice it this way, it is definitely going to help you in upcoming sessions where we will learn the typecasting, right? So here, now this 5.6 is converted into float. Got it? Great. Naveed, are you good with this now? Great, great. So now we have seen so many number of variables, right? Now let's have a quick testing of you guys that how much you have understood. Suppose I say you that declare a variable of type int and assign a value of 127 to it. So declare a variable. Let's give a name to the variable. So I'll call it as num1. So declare a variable num1 of type int and assign a value of 127 to it. So how are you going to declare it? I don't want the whole program, just that one line of the declaration of the variable. Quickly type in your chat. Declare a variable num1 of type int and assign a value of 127 to it. Okay, I want everyone to attend this, right? I want everyone to attend it. Naveed, you also do some exercise over here. Good. Jocelyn has done. Arna. Arna, do attend it. You can mute your microphone and type it inside the chat. Okay. So now see, the value that Jocelyn has added up right here. This one is correct. This is the correct format. So Jocelyn and Naveed, you guys have written it correctly. Gurman, the one you have written over here, I'll tell you what is the mistake at this point. See, you are trying to do some typecasting. Whenever you have to declare a variable, now what is 127? By default, every value 127 will be considered as a integer value, right? So now here int num1 is equal to 127. So you don't have to give this thing. Remember, look at the left and the right side of your declaration, right? On the left side, you have to only declare the variables. Left side of this equation, there is no typecasting, right? So left side, you don't have any typecasting. Whenever you have to write up a variable, you can simply go and write up this variable. That's all. Okay. So right side will be the value or an operation which will calculate and save the value, right? So left side, we are looking towards the left side. So that is only the declaration. Okay. Right. Now I have a very good practice for you guys, variable demo. So let's go for new file, practice1.java. Now we have a practice1.java. I'll write this class name also as practice1 and write up a main method public static void main string arguments. Now here, if I see the type of our variables, the data types, byte, short, int, and long. Now, why 4 type of variables? As I said, Java says that, okay, if you have an application which is going to run in a very small memory size, so don't take every variable as int. Now, suppose I want to save the data for some school. I want to save the age of a student, right? A school student. So obviously a school student age would be maximum till 20 years, maximum to maximum maybe 22 years, even less than that, not more than that. So I will not take a int type of variable, right? I can take a byte, I can take a short. Now, how can you decide what value is to be taken? So remember this byte, short, int, long, byte, short, int, and long decide a size, right? Range of value, range of value. So byte means if you declare up a byte variable, if you declare up a byte num, what is the size of the memory that it is going to take? What is the size of the memory it is going to take? It's going to take a 1 byte memory, right? And what is the range of value? The range of value is -128 to 127. Right. Now, suppose if you want to save a number like 24, age of a school student. So why should I take a bigger memory variables, right? I can consume that only 1 bytes. You should be greedy with your memory, right? You should save as much as memory in your program. So here I'll say that why should I take a integer type of variable which is taking so much of the memory? So this is of around 4 bytes, right? So similarly, if I take a short type of variable, so this is going to take 2 bytes of memory, right? Now the size of these values is going to vary. The size of this value is going to vary, right? So 1 byte of memory will take -128 to 127. So this is somewhere around 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 32 and 64, 128. Yes. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now how to remember up these short and int values also. So if you look at this, this would be -2 raised to power 7 to this plus 2 raised to power 7 minus 1. So this is the value, right? So short is going to take a value till 2 raised to power double this value and add 1 to it. So 2 raised to power 15 minus 2 raised to power 15 to 2 raised to power 15 minus 1. This is the range of value a short num1 can save, right? And an integer can save 2 raised to power 31 to 2 raised to power 31 minus 1, right? From negative to positive. If I want to save a number like -64, I can easily save it inside byte. I can save it inside short, int, and long also. But if you can store the same value in byte, why should you consume more memory? Because you see, if this is going to take 1 byte, you have like thousands of variables which are going to take this value, right? So only 1000 byte will be consumed. And if you take an integer, so 4 multiplied by 1000, that means 4000, 3000 bytes of memory is consumed extra, right? So when you watch this recording, note this all stuff, right? So for byte, you have a memory size of 1 byte, but it can store the numbers from -2 raised to power 7 to 2 raised to power 7 minus 1. For short, 2 raised to the power 15 to 2 raised to the power 15 minus 1. Integer 4 bytes, but it will save a big value. And similarly, long, it is of 8 bytes, right? Long is of 8 bytes, but it is going to store a very big value, minus 2 raised to the power 64 to 2 raised to the power 64 minus 1. Okay. Right. So now I hope you would understand what variable is to be taken at what time. Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Because 31 doubled becomes 62 plus 1, 63, 2 raised to the power 63. Exactly. Thank you. So, yeah, we have made a correction over here that whenever I talk about the long variables, long variable will take minus 2 raised to the power 63 to 2 raised to the power 63 minus 1. Very good, Gurman. Okay, so now you guys would have understood that if I want to take a number, what is the correct variable type I should use? If I want to save a number like, let's say 256, can I save 256 inside byte? So answer will be no. I cannot save 256 inside byte, right? It will give me an error. Remember one more thing. If I write a variable, let's declare up a byte variable, byte b is equal to 64. This is good. It will not give you any problem. If you say byte b again, you say value is 127. Good. This is not going to give you any error. If you write byte b is equal to 128, right? This will give me an error. Let's do it practically, and I want to test you guys now. Here is our practice program. So let's write up here byte b is equal to 127. Okay. System.out.println b. Okay. So now I have stored a value in the byte variable. That means this value is going to get stored in my computer. Now one can ask me a question, sir, we are writing up a 2-line program. Why to store the value into the computer memory for just 2 lines? See, we are writing up 2 lines of code now. But when you go to a company, when you do a job in your, like after completing up your studies, so you would have to write up a hundreds and thousands of lines of code, right? Millions of lines of code. In a small software also, you have to write a million line of code. And it's not only you, a lot of like big team is going to work on that. So in that case, variables, when your program is running, it remains in memory for some time. There is some processing period. So for that period, you have to keep that variable in the memory. You have to store that values inside the memory, right? So here, practice 1 program, I have created a variable byte b is equal to 127. So what have I done? I have declare a byte variable assigned 127 to, right? So I'm talking about the term assigned means this value is assigned to the variable b, right? And then I have displayed this value. Let's go and compile this program. So compilation would be with the file name. So what is the file name? Let's quickly check it. It's practice1. So Java C practice1.java and run my program. So you can see output is 127. This is very good. But what if I change, suppose this value is changed to 128. Assume that some other program is running and it's giving the value to you and you are trying to save it in byte b. 128. Will this run? 128. But we know that this is out of the range of byte b, right? This is out of the range of byte b. So Java considers value from 127 minus 128, sorry, minus 128 to 127 positive as a byte value. So Java recognizes it. Java will not give you error for 120 minus 128 to 127. As soon as you go out of the range, Java will give you an error. It will say incompatible types. Now anything above 128 is considered to be the int. What is the size of int? The size of int is 4 bytes, right? So now it is getting error that 4 bytes value cannot be stored to the byte, right? But remember, we did a program over here where I converted my double to float. So similarly here, now Java says that this is integer. Okay, let me convert it to byte. Compile it. What happened over here? So value has converted into negative. So this is a wrong logic, right? So whenever you have to take a value, consider that what can be the maximum size of the value, right? If the maximum size of value, like client says the maximum size of value is maybe 400, 500 maximum limit, or he can say like there is a value of 10,000. For example, let's say bank account. In a bank account, you can deposit big amounts like 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 10 millions, right? Now, suppose if there was a 10 million amount, what would have happened if you have saved it inside the byte like this, right? The bank, your amount would have gone into negative, right? All the amount would have lost. So for example, see, if suppose there is amount of 128 in your account, what would it have become? It would have become minus 128. That means you owe minus 128 to the bank. You have to pay this amount once again, right? So this can be a bug in your program. Whenever you have to deal with the variables and the data types, ensure you should consider the value and declare a variable accordingly. Got it? So here, if I go and change this value into a bigger number, 400. So what is going to happen over here? It's going to take the number line and change that value. Yes, minus 2 raised to power 63. It's not 263. Remember, this is 2 raised to power 63. If you want to represent this, you can say minus 2e63. Write it like this. So anyone can understand 2 raised to power 63. Okay. So now this is the variables we have seen. Quickly, let's check few of the operators. Right. So I'll just copy this program, new file, operator demo.java. Now, when you write your program, right, you may have to use calculations. For example, if you are writing up an application for software for bank, there can be a lot of transactions, right? And now the customer wants to see his final balance. So in that case, it would be like big number of transactions. So you have to calculate, subtract, right? So we have various operators. Which topic, Gurman? Gurman, I would be sharing up this recording, right? Recording also. So not to worry, if you are having any doubts, you can go through the recording, right? And post it in my channel. So we can have a quick discussion over there. Because if we repeat up in the live session, it will take more and more time. And we won't be like able to complete up all the topics, right? So this recording would be shared with you. You can repeat the topic as many number of times. No problem. There is nothing to feel sorry. Right. So here we have the operators. So as I am saying, if I want to calculate, I want to make some calculations, right? We can use the operators. So we have arithmetic operators for making the mathematical calculations, right? So they are plus, minus, multiplication, division, and mod. Very interesting things. You can write up big operations. Computers never get tired of calculating up the things, right? So suppose if I have two variables, int num is equal to 10. Let's call it as int num1, right? Int num2 is equal to 12. So here, let's print this value, system.out.println num1 plus num2. Okay, so now you see what is this num1 and num2 being given to the print line. So num1 and num2 are being added up, right? Sum of this num1 and num2 is sent to the print line to print. So this is a plus, right? You can also do int result is equal to num1 plus num2. Integer and integer when added up will give you a int variable, right? An int and int when added up, any arithmetic calculation based on two same type of data types, right? Same type of data types will give you the resultant data type as same resultant data type, right? So when an int is added with another int, you get the result as integer. Okay, so we can go and write up display the result also. So you can do it both ways. Now, why I'm storing it in result? Suppose I want to use this result somewhere else. I want to calculate it. I want to say int final result is equal to result multiplied by 10. Right. So this way I would have to store the result somewhere. Now see what is happening over here. I had two numbers. I calculated it, right? For example, sum, and sum multiplied by 10, that is the final result. So I display the final result. Okay. So possibly you may have to calculate and save it inside some variables also, because I want to use that final value somewhere. So here I have saved it inside final result because at some other point I may have to display this result. Okay. Maybe I have to say that system.out.println, that is num1, num2. So I'm going to say num1 and num2 and final result. So this way you see the final result is not immediately displayed. It is being stored in the memory for some time. And once you display the input values, and after that I'm going to display the final result. So if you go and compile this, Java C operator demo.java. So I'm getting the output 22, 10, 12, 220, right? So accordingly, whatever we have given the instructions over here. So the takeaway over here is this plus operator. Whenever I pass a plus operator to two int type of values, it is going to sum up both the values. Okay. Right. And this way you can also use your other operators. So let's quickly add it. Plus, minus, multiplication, division, and a new thing for you, that is mod. This is not a percentage, right? This will not calculate the percentage. This will calculate the remainder, the mod value, right? It will calculate the remainder, the mod value. So suppose if this is, I change this value, I call it as 100, 112. Let's remove up all this stuff. Go and compile it again. Run it. So now you see addition of both the numbers, 112, 112, then subtract 88, multiplied 1200, division. So you are getting the quotient part, right? That is 8. And then you get the remainder, that is 100 divided by 12. So its remainder is 4. So you have the arithmetic operators which are going to calculate, help you in calculating up the operations for the integer values, right? Good. So we will now close it over here for the day. I'll be sharing a few assignments, programs, sample programs, plus the assignments in our Telegram channel, right? And I want you to follow it, solve the problems, right? And reply to me on my Telegram channel itself. So this, see, programming videos can be watched like a lot, but unless and until you practice it, you solve more and more problems, then only you will be an efficient programmer, right? So I hope you guys liked the session today, and we'll meet in the next weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And you can use the same link that you have used today. It's a permanent session link, right? For this whole period of like batch, whatever we have made. So let's meet in the next week. Thanks for attending of the session. Have a good week ahead. Right. Bye. Thank you.